And welcome to all the new community transformation grantees who are going to be part of our Mass in Motion. So this is an exciting day for us to have some conversations about the work that's going forward over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Really nice to be here. And I think one of the things that, as Cheryl talked about, we've been able to expand Mass in Motion through community transformation. And I just wanted to show the map because it's really, for those of you who've been here from the beginning, how exciting it is to see the different colors and the different communities that we've brought now as part of this. And I think what's really interesting too is that we're going to have such a variety of experiences. We have rural Massachusetts, we have the islands, we have urban centers, we have a lot of different cities and towns that are participating. So I think the strategies play out differently, but it's really going to be fun to be part of the evidence and really looking at how this plays out. I think we're going to be doing similar work, but how it works in your community is a little bit different. These are types of things that we're going to change the conditions so people can engage in the behaviors that we want them to. This is also a schematic that I really like to focus on because ultimately we're trying to get to the healthy people, but if we don't start upstream and looking at healthy policies, we're not going to get there. And I say healthy policy because it's not about health policy. Transportation policy is health policy. Education policy is health policy. Housing policy is health policy. So remember, these are types of things. How do we get health elements into all types of policies so we can get healthy environments, to get healthy behaviors, to get healthy people? Because that's really what we want to get to, because we have to look at the places where we live, work, learn, and play, and what types of environments do we want? How do we get from here to here? Okay? How do we get from the traffic tie-ups, the fast food, the signage on smoking, and the poor walking conditions to where we have a condition where people can go out, and it takes partnerships, and that's why we have you in teams and we have you pulling together a partnership because it's not about one person. It's about you working in with different disciplines. For those of you, how many of you are in public health? Or who would consider them public health? How many people are from the land use or transportation planning world? Okay. How many people are from housing? Business community? Faith-based? Education? Okay, we're not seeing the hands. We have to see more of that because, again, it's taking all of us working together. And I think particularly, I have been thrilled over the last couple of years working with land use and transportation planners. I've gotten some people going, you sound like a planner now. I'm coming close, not perfect, because the planners would say I'm not. But I think it's really important to have that interface around creating healthy communities is all about working together in collaborations and partnerships. So really that's what, I think my chart was talking about what the expectation was. The expectation is for us to be working in collaboration on the local level, just like we're working on the state level with our sister agencies and sister partners to create healthier communities.
And at PolicyLink, we believe that our local leaders are our national leaders, and that the real solutions for change are really coming from local communities in ways that we can really be able to lift that up and help to inform our state and federal initiatives. So equity is both a moral imperative, but also an economic one. And if we want to have real growth in this country, be prosperous and competitive, we have to think about those that are most in need and be able to create opportunities for those that will really get to expanding our middle class, to really being able to build the skills of our adults and our youth so that they are productive workers in this society and can be able to really contribute to our society here. And with that, I thank you very much.
It's like, in a way of it? No. I think that like
and they have responded with great enthusiasm for this program. Some really exciting developments. One has been that the science department head at Durfee High School has really taken this on as a way to teach her students about technology, about bicycle mechanics, gears, and all of that kind of thing, and is planning on implementing it as a as a new curriculum at the high school level that will prepare kids, this is great, for the MCAS in engineering and technology. So, and the idea would be that come down, maybe even this summer, we'll be able to offer a Earn a Bike program for kids, which will include some bicycle safety, use of helmets, and also how to navigate to get from one end, to get to your destination.
You know, the parent advocacy newsletter is wonderful. I can't read.
I know.
The pictures are great.
Is it literacy just in English, or is it literacy in
across the board
different languages as well? Because I know they have
running the groups or whatever. The residents themselves engage.
Well engaged in conversations at your tables and talking amongst tables, because that's what we're here to do today, and get some great ideas to take back to our communities. And so now I have the pleasure of introducing Mark Fenton. As I mentioned earlier, Mark is a professor at Tufts and is also one of the Center for Disease Control's expert consultants that's available to states to come in and really help you work on your built environment. And Mark really gives a very engaging presentation, and I know that you're going to leave here and have some great ideas and be completely enthused. And as I said, hold on to your seats. He's full of energy, and you'll really enjoy his presentation. So Mark, thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise for me to make sure I understand the landscape in the room. So everybody pull your chair back from your table, if you would, so you can stand up. And Lee's giving me the look like, oh, this is a hokey Mark Fenton participation. You can sit down for starters, but here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to ask you, it's a little exercise that my friend Tyler Norris calls That's Me, in which you identify yourself by discipline. So if your answer is affirmative to what you can start by sitting. Start in the sitting position, but you need to be ready to stand quickly, because what I'm going to say is, I'm going to say something, and then if that represents you, you have to stand up and say, that's me. And you have to raise your hand and say with vigor, that's me. So to test this, I am alive and breathing today. That's me. Pretty good. Not great, but okay. So let's try another one. I'm in Hyannis, Massachusetts. That's me. Good. Let's see. I have seen a Mark Fenton presentation before. That's me. That's That's scary is what that is. I'm going to apologize in advance then for I'm in public health. That's me. I am in some other kind of social service sort of organization. Social service. Right? We've just covered 85, maybe 90% of the room. Everybody hear that? Public health, social services. I'm in hospitals, healthcare, some other form of health protection. That's me. We've now got 98% of the room. 98% of the room. I'm involved with schools, administration, teacher, faculty, staff. Thank you. How about housing? Anybody work in housing? Wonderful. So glad you're here. How about agriculture, farming, urban agriculture, rural? Thank you. Good. How about the business world? You don't have anything else that I've listed yet, but you're in the private business sector. Ooh. Ooh. Would anybody admit that that's... Oh, we have one? Any great-grandparents? Okay, good. I do that just to remind ourselves. Obviously, we can move, but more importantly, remind ourselves where we stand with regard to the kinds of things we think we ought to be working on and who we may have to reach out to make that. Take 1 second, think back to your earliest fond recollection of having been physically active as a youngster. Got it in your brains? Share it with the person next to you right now. 10 seconds each. This is what I remember doing as a little kid. Earliest and fond recollection.
But I didn't like to do the drill.
Because you could get friends together quickly. I didn't own a car until I was 22. We didn't need to. Around and King of the Mountain. I remember King of the Mountain, some mound of dirt.
Okay. It would be far more fun, I know, to have that conversation now for another 30 minutes than to have to listen to me, but indulge me. Indulge me, if you will. I'm going to ask a series of questions about your recollections, and you don't have to stand up. Just raise your hand if your answer is affirmative, all right? How many of you did the recollection involve only being with kids of the same age and gender? Same age and gender kids. So you were with kids the same. How many did the activity occur at a designated location at a designated time? Hands up. How many had to have an adult present for the activity? How many had to have a referee or an umpire on site to do the activity? And how many had to have a uniform or received a uniform to do the activity? Okay, so a lot of hands for all that. How many remember being with kids of different ages, different genders, older, younger, boys and girls playing together? How many did not have an adult necessarily present? Who could not have gotten away with what they were doing if an adult had been present? Yeah. Cheryl, I'm a little concerned. How many of you did a wheeled vehicle figure in what you were doing? A bike, a trike, a scooter, a skateboard, maybe that you even made, roller skate. How many did water figure in it? Were you fishing? Were you skating on a pond? Were you damming up a neighborhood creek and just taking salamanders or something like that? We used to do that all the time. How many of you had a fort in the woods somewhere? Or how many had a lot or a street in the neighborhood, even if you were in an urban environment, that the kids could take over and play games either on the street or on that lot? All right. How many of you, if I were to vastly oversimplify it, would call yourself a free-range kid? I was a free-range kid. Cool. And you know where I'm going with this. How many of you believe the majority of children today are free-range kids? Over 50% of American kids free-range? No, of course not. And how many believe it's good for them that they're not free-range kids, that they're not free-range? Yeah, I'm so psyched we don't have free-range kids anymore. Helping with the childhood obesity epidemic that we have the special journal about now. A journal with the title, Childhood Obesity. It's mind-blowing to me. It used to be called Obesity and Weight Management. They've recently changed it to acknowledge we are raising a generation of 1 of 3 of each of those kids is going to end up with type 2 diabetes in their lifetime. 1 in 3. Those are what the estimates are. So we have a journal devoted to it. And I submit to you, my fundamental point is this. It has a lot to do with them not being free range anymore. I'm not the only person talking about it. If you've seen me before, you know I acknowledge there are many really thoughtful folks writing and doing research on this. Richard Lou's got a great book called Last Child in the Woods that I recommend because it's a good, compelling read, and you don't have to be a sort of a health advocate to be engaged by it, because he talks about sort of everything from the physiological challenges to even the developmental issues. He asks, are we raising a generation of kids who don't know how to navigate the world anymore? How to pick teams, select captains, argue out when the ball goes out of bounds without an adult telling them what to do. You talked about pickup games. We had to do all that stuff. I argue, he argues, that you use those very skills in day-to-day life as an adult. And if we raise kids that have never developed them, we're really doing them an injustice. Shane Gould, that article from Australia, same thing. I was over speaking at the Australian National Physical Activity Conference, and they were talking very much about that. And, of course, when we ask parents, why don't you let your kid go ride his bike to a friend's house or disappear on Saturday morning with a bunch of friends on bicycles, they tell us what?
It's not safe.
It's not safe. Is that what you were going to say? So here's the problem. You tell parents, let your kid walk to school. They say, it's not safe. There's a scary guy with a big, thick mustache hiding behind every tree ready to abduct my child. And very time spent in which childhood obesity rates have tripled, we can find no evidence that actual violent crime against kids, by people who don't know them, has gone up. Are you guys aware of that? No evidence. We can't find it. What has happened is the media covers it more, and there are certainly communities and urban environments where it's dangerous to let kids roam free. I get that. As a parent of a 14 and a 16-year-old, we have been very careful about our kids and where they go. But I'm going to suggest to you that that notion that the world is a vastly more dangerous place when you were all out running around with your buddies as youngsters is probably not entirely true. Now, things have changed. Certainly, roads are wider, traffic is faster, vehicles are much bigger. Right? And that landscape is a different space. The road that you rode your bike to your friend's house on, your kid is probably looking at more lanes on that road, much more traffic, and much faster. Same road that we rode our bikes on, right? But interestingly enough, that gets us back to the point. Could we actually do something about that landscape? I would argue yes. A pedometer, baseball hat, any fanny pack, any type of tchotchke to encourage people to healthy behavior. Ready? Go. That's me. I want everybody to own it. Stand up. That's me right now. You guys are a bunch of weenies. You've all I'm only letting the planners off the hook. And they've probably done a bike to work day where you gave away water bottles and bike reflectors, didn't you? We do tchotchkes. Because it works, by the way. You know, acute, short term, 6 months. Notice all 3 groups increase their exercise minutes per week, which is not the interesting question. From a public health standpoint, I've just done the 300 people or maybe, if I'm lucky, the 500 people in my workplace who signed up for the program, and they all increase their exercise minutes per week. I have another 1,500 I got to go do next, and then after them I got to do the next 10,000 in my community, and then I got to go to the next community over. This is not a population-based intervention, is it? Particularly when it doesn't stick. Look what the exercise minutes per week did after the 6-month intervention, and I'm not calling you on the phone anymore. It drops off. There's not lots of this stuff in the research literature, but that which we have around both physical activity programs and things like 5-a-day nutrition programs, you know, eat your 5 fruits and vegetables a day, and we're going to call you on the phone and set up special events at workplaces and have the fruits and vegetables available and give you vouchers, you know, just go get your apples and all that stuff. During the intervention, you can change behavior. After you depart, it tends not to stick. Does anybody want to challenge me on this? Anybody got evidence to say, no, I know the behavior change program that has worked long term? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not missing some research out there. And indeed, by the way, the weight loss literature, that's all you can find. You look at every study, they all show this regression back to the initial condition. This compares Weight Watchers, the yellow line, to the self-help program, the red line. So Weight Watchers was more successful initially, more weight loss. But over time, you'll notice both groups are regaining. See that again and again in the literature. Physical activity is a part of lifestyle, and eating well is a part of their norm, right? So it's not exercise and it's not diet. It's physical activity as a part of daily life, and it's healthy nutrition because that's how we live. Fair? Okay? And none of this is rocket science that I've said yet. And by the way, I always make the case, 2 great historic locations. If you haven't visited them, they're both worthy of a visit. Plymouth Plantation, you know, back in the 1600s, or you can go turn of the century, industrial revolution cities like Lowell, and see how people lived back then. And you think about the amount of daily physical activity they got. Their problem was not having to go to the gym after a day of working balloons up in the giant textile mills, right? Of course not. Carting giant bales of textiles up and down stairs and things like that. So clearly this is, from a genetic standpoint, a very recent phenomenon that we as a species simply didn't get enough physical activity as a part of daily life. It really is. When we were an agrarian society, when we were an industrial society, it's only in the modern era that the vast majority of Americans and you know, residents of developed countries have run into this. Here's the wild thing. We're now seeing, even in developing countries, you're getting a class of people that are seeing obesity. Cardiovascular disease is dramatically on the rise in China and India. China and India, as they develop a middle class which emulates an American lifestyle. Rising rates of car ownership, greater access to Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's. It's as if they don't even see the sledgehammer swinging toward their heads. You know what I mean? Seriously, I mean, it's our lifestyles, and we know that's what's happening to them. So, what we really have to do is take a socio-ecological approach. Again, no news. It is the very premise of Mass in Motion. It's the very premise of the grants we've gotten from the CDC. And what this says is you can't just tell the individual, do this, don't do that. But if you really want to overcome the stickiness problem, you also, as well as that, do the behavior change stuff. But you also have to move up the model to interpersonal influences, workplace, you know, sort of institutional influences, their school, their work site, the healthcare provider, the community at large, and even by its very design and policies, the world we live in. That's sort of how you get this. That's how you scale this stuff up so that this is all familiar to everybody in the room, is it, so far? Social yes. These are the 4 things. If you've seen me present before, we can talk about this in more detail, but we don't have the time today other than to give it the skim code. But the skim code is simply this. If different kinds of stuff is close together, if it's well connected by facilities for physically active travel, if the destinations themselves are designed in a way to reward you when you show up without a car, and if it's safe and accessible for all ages, all incomes, people with physical disabilities, if everybody feels comfortable using it. Now that's really important because remember, now how about we could say, well, there's a bike lane there. We could say, hey, do these people have bikes? Do they have, would they feel comfortable riding a bike in this neighborhood? Would they feel out of place? In other words, you know, sort of some of the stuff that Amanda alluded to, really important when you think about question number 4, those 4. But if you can say yes to all of those, then you're going to tend to see more routine visits. By the way, let me make one point about making the pitch to elected officials. I got to tell you, there are lots of potential allies in this. Certainly the environmentalists, social equity folks, people that think about public safety, recognizing that our youngest and oldest pedestrians are our most vulnerable. Schools, as I alluded to, are thinking about reducing transportation costs, but they're also beginning to recognize that more physically active kids do actually perform better academically. There are actually, you know, in sort of opposition to Amanda's sort of example, there are communities at the other end of the spectrum, Milwaukee, for example, that has very intentionally gone back to community schools and said the way we're going to deal with this is make those schools community centers. We're going to put in senior centers. We're going to make that adult ed programs, English as a second language. We're going to make them so amazing that nobody would be sad that their kid is going there, and they're going to be utilized, which is, of course, the more enlightened response to, I think, to that challenge that we face. But for all the niceness that that stuff sounds like and the potential allies, if you can't make an economic argument, I still find I struggle with elected and appointed officials, planning board members, and in particular planning boards and city councils or select boards. I got to be able to make the economic argument. And that one's a pretty strong one, as we see, for example, that the National Association of Realtors published in their 2010 issue of On Common Ground, which is sort of an industry publication, that they believe the next generation of home buyers are actually embodied more by that picture than the stereotypical house on a suburban cul-de-sac with a 4-car garage. Right? That's the image we had for the last 20 years of the American dream. They're saying, you know, the American dream's starting to look, and I tell people when I show them this slide, I say, you know, what's happened if we become the Netherlands, for God's sake? The woman on a bike with a baguette in the basket? Ah, it's Paris. Oh, yeah. We are socialists, aren't we? Well, we aren't, but people are saying, no. But people are saying, I want to be able to walk my kid to school or be able to ride a bike to a corner store with gas coming on back to $4 a gallon and then $5. Just so you know, we saw a downturn in vehicle miles traveled in the United States back in 2008 with $4 a gallon gas in the beginning of the recession, right? It has not turned back up. This is the first time we've seen a sustained drop in vehicle miles traveled in decades in the United States. We may well be talking about a new game and an amazing window of opportunity to shift behavior, but we got to jump on it. We have to build sticky environments for that person. Now, that's just one example, but it says if the business community is saying this is the way it's going, that's important. And indeed, communities all over the country are saying, you know, maybe that model, the big boxes and the strip malls and so on, is not as sustainable as we'd like, and we want to be investing back in our downtowns. How do we get there? Well, in fact, there are some of my friends from New Bedford. There we are, and then I think we're over at the work session afterwards, over at the Whaling Museum. Is that possible? Is that where we met afterwards? Okay, so we got to get people engaged. We got to do everything Amanda said before. So I don't have to repeat that, other than to say I'm going to give you my manifesto that's in the childhood obesity article. I think there is an evidence-based list of the to-do list that you could check off. So if you're saying, what are the 4 or 5 arenas we should be working in? Here they are. Here they are, in my take. I think we've got to think about what our zoning ordinances say and our design guidelines, our subdivision regulations about building our communities. I think we have to have complete streets policies in place. No, guidelines, not policies, don't use the P word. Design guidelines, there's an example. Trails and greenways. Let's not just build nice trails for people to go recreate on the weekend. Let's build trails that connect schools to neighborhoods, senior housing to shopping. In part, what we call transportation demand management. But in English, what that means is transit and bike-friendly policies. Let's build a world where taking the bus, riding your bike, walking becomes the better choice, easier choice, the cheaper choice. And safe routes to school. Safe routes to school has opportunities that look different in different environments, but I think there's a lot there. And just to reiterate what Amanda said, think about equity in every one of these. It has to be just woven in. It really isn't its own bullet point, because it happens when I do my Safe Routes program right from the beginning, when I hold my first workshop in public meeting. Is that fair? Yep. Is that a good way to capture it? So, having said that, I'm probably going to run out of time, so let me leave you with this thought about how you actually pull your team together. Because I think this is the other tidbit, reflected by our That's Me exercise. If you think about it, all of these people are potential, or disciplines, are potential representatives to your team. And indeed, if you buy my list, you're thinking, well, I got to have my planner at the table. How can I not if I'm really talking about these kinds of... And I guess we need our public works director and the trails folks. Our David Weed, I need that guy, that wacky advocate who's constantly out there about trails and greenways. So if you started to build an organizational chart, and some of you have seen this from me before, you say, well, I need health and planning and transportation, but I really need public works and elected officials and the neighborhood associations and heart association and cancer society and diabetes and recreation and parks and the hospital and the big insurance organization and the biggest employers in the Y. That's not a very organized organizational chart. It gets chaotic. And if you pull them all to the table at the same time, trust me on this, you will never get anything done. You need what I call a stealth leadership team. And I call it stealth because it flies under the radar, and the people on that team don't have big egos, and they are not there for the self-aggrandizement of it. They're there just because in fact, I would argue they believe in this. And I would argue you have to build an organization that looks like this, with at its core a fairly tight, compact, wait for it, interdisciplinary leadership team. If 6 of the 10 seats at your leadership table are health and social services, it's not interdisciplinary. 3 should be health and social services, and then 7 should be, depends on your community. If you're a very rural community and agriculture is important, then have somebody from the Cranberry Association or whatever. You know what I mean? In other words, Cranberry Farming Association. There's got to be some organization like that. My point is, it's going to look different in every community. Equity says we should go find who the right people are, and then compose it of them based on 3 things. 1, they totally embrace the vision of healthy community design. 2, they can work on this as part of their job. They're not volunteers. You're not begging them to show up. It's part of what they've got. It's their portfolio. And 3, they got a killer Rolodex or BlackBerry. So when you got to get the larger group, they make 1 phone call or email, and you got everybody in the game. Now, those are actually pretty good criteria, and they are not easy to meet, but I guarantee you right now, when you turn back to the tables, you can start to think about people who are not in the conversation yet that meet my 3 criteria, which I'm now pulling up again. They embrace the vision. They can call it their work. They have enough community reach and influence to actually get this stuff done, basically, or get to the people who need to get it done. I just got to wrap up with 1 point. So I'm not going to show you, I just wanted to show you this sequence so I could elaborate on each of my 5 things. I'm happy to do that in detailed conversations with you. I'm going to blow through the slides other than to show you, when I was here in Barnstable a week ago, right? Were we here a week ago? That's the big giant wall that is across the street from Restaurant. Heinous in every way for bicycle pedestrian access, and probably not friendly for transit either. You get dropped off out of the road and make your way across, play Frogger across the parking lot. There's the big sign. The festival. It's called the festival, that giant mall. It's a festival for cars. Pedestrian, thank you very much. Take your life into your hands. Now, at the same time, I walked downtown Barnstable and saw Welcome Barnstable Market. It had just opened. Beautiful produce section. It was right across the street from the municipal complex. This woman walked down and she said, I am so excited. She lived in some senior housing just down the road. She said, I'm going to be able to walk to this grocery store. The Shaw's at the festival, that's why I went and found it, has been my only store with a produce section until this place opened. I just pray to God this place makes it, that it survives. And my answer would be, we got to get as many residents as possible supporting it. You know, you vote with your dollars. But what a beautiful example of sort of an enlightened, I think, health-inducing. They got the healthy offerings. It's within walking distance, physical activity, nutrition, bingo. But we got to support it and make it happen, right? We've got to, and that means all the residents, everything. So I wanted to share that, and I'm going to close with this slide. Wait, I want to say this slide. Remember my build health equity in? I would argue, find those that you hear from least, just as we alluded to, tackle the gentrification problem. Amanda didn't go into it in detail. Gentrification is the idea you rebuild a neighborhood, you make it desirable, and all of a sudden the housing values go up, and everybody wants to live near this new Trader Joe's complex that you guys have built, and the folks that used to afford to live there can't afford to live there now. So we've got to think about inclusionary zoning, affordability, a lot of things that we want, that economic health, but we don't want it at the expense of the people who live there. So I wanted to mention that. And I wanted to say there are actionable steps for tomorrow. You're going, my God, are you telling me I got to rewrite our zoning? No, what I'm telling you is that you could start tomorrow in each of the 5 areas I've mentioned with a to-do step, like mapping access to healthy foods. Pass just a complete streets resolution, just a statement of intent at the mayoral or select board or city council level. Trails and greenways, start a goat trail committee. Go out and find those paths that are worn naturally on the ground, where kids are shortcutting to the school, to the back of the shopping. Formalize those trails, that's for short money. How about putting up a bike parking corral at special events, at the farmer's market, at the festival that you have? Or do a buy a bike rack program where local businesses help pay for the bike racks you started installing in downtown. When you're repaving the road anyway, consider striping a bike lane. Safe routes to school, the single most important thing you could do tomorrow is measure the transportation mode split at every one of your schools. Does everybody know what mode split is? What are the travel modes being used at our school? How many kids walk? How many bike? How many take the bus? How many come in a car alone? How many come in a carpool? And you can do that with show of hands surveys when you do attendance in the morning. We're busily reporting body mass index, fine and dandy. We should be measuring how many kids actually walk and bike to school, how many of our buses are being run at only 1/3 or 2/3 capacity. Report that back to the school board and the principal. They're going to be very interested in those numbers. Great way to start a conversation. How many of you actually measured that? How many have measured moat share at least some of your schools? And who can tell me the moat share at all of your schools? Okay. If you don't do anything else, that's something you can do tomorrow. I challenge those of you who I've talked to before, Marsh McCard, that you should be able to say, yes, I can tell you those numbers for every one of your schools. Can you? No, but you know them. You've measured that at every one of your schools, right? And it starts the conversation. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. I'm reminding myself of that very scary statistics. I told you it comes from that New England Journal of Medicine article. First generation that's going to end up with shorter life expectancies. And you cannot accept all. There's a gazillion. I can write the script for all the reasons we can't send our kids back outside. It's dangerous. It's scary. The roads are too big. 2 parents work. 1 parent household. None of them are okay if those guys end up with shorter life expectancies than us. Come up with answers to every single one of them. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Okay, on your, again, go back to your question.
Yeah, I heard that Walgreens was going into the new water. We don't want Walgreens. I would like Walgreens to go into the old water if that's what they want to put. That's a strip area. Who cares?
Walgreens want to go in?
Yeah.
Oh, because Trader Joe's coming down the river would then loop up, connecting Britland Park with Father Travasso Park. And the one part of it going along
Blue Cross and Blue Shield is the largest health plan in Massachusetts, and so they have a vested interest in wellness and control of chronic disease. And so today, to talk about sustaining our work is Julie Burns, and Julie is the Director of Public Affairs and Business Integration at Blue Cross.
It's nice to be with a group of people who are promoting health and wellness without picking up a stethoscope, without taking a blood sample, without wearing a white lab coat. And I appreciate and applaud the work that you do every day. Before I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield, I worked for Mayor Menino for many years, so I'm watching you work together in these groups, and it's just exciting to see that you're able to come together and work on these exciting. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague Amy O'Neill, who is the Director of Wellness and Prevention Programs at Blue Cross, and she's got some data to share with you that I think you'll find interesting. So thanks for the chance to be here.
Julie asked me to join her today and to speak. I was kind of struggling about, what information could I give you that could help inform you and help you with your work and move it forward. So one of the things that I found helpful, so I'm hoping it will be helpful to you, is to really think about what's happening out there in the world around healthcare. So you have an idea of what individuals and families are facing when it comes to healthcare and healthcare changes that are occurring. So in healthcare and the impact on wellness, there's medical costs continue to rise. Sorry, can you hear me? Large employer groups are really shifting to self-funding, which, and all that means is that they take responsibility for the medical claims, or, they really take on the what's the word? The liability, really, of their medical claims, as opposed to the insurance company doing it, which has some impact on the wellness and what employers expect from their employees around their health. So that's kind of the connection there. There's a lot of costs being shifted to employees, so many of you are probably in high deductible plans, which really, it's a lower premium, but it's can be more out-of-pocket expense initially. So that's another thing that individuals and families are facing, and why it's so important that they really take care of it. I applaud you for your work as well, and I'm really excited about being part of this, and I hope that I'll see many of you in the future, if not all of you, and would be happy to help and work with any one of you, or if you have any questions. Well, thank you again. I hope you enjoy your lunch, and thank you for having us.
Hi, my name, again, is Patty Henley. I'm the Acting Director of Policy and Planning for the Massachusetts Tobacco Cessation and Prevention Program. And I'm here to introduce Chris Fenton, who will be talking to you about secondhand smoke and multi-unit housing, but also just tobacco and tobacco's connection, the third leg of the stool that we've been talking about all day today. Policy around secondhand smoke and multi-unit housing, and the importance of working, as you all are with Mass in Motion communities, in a team, and connecting with the various municipal partners that you can to help improve the health of folks who live in multi-unit housing, whether it's publicly funded or privately funded housing.
Wow, thank you very much. Didn't expect the applause. What we're going to do, here's what I want to try to accomplish, and at the end you can let me know if I did or didn't. I want to just go back over some of the health issues on secondhand smoke and multi-unit dwellings. You guys know the health issues on secondhand smoke and tobacco. I mean, it's a nightmare public health threat. And for a lot of people, they think, oh, the issue's done. They just don't see it. But it's a big problem for lots of people still, particularly residents of multi-unit dwellings. Those are the people who deal with this threat every day, have their kids exposed to secondhand smoke, and suffer the health effects of exposure still, even in Massachusetts, the worldwide leader in tobacco control, still we have people dealing with this issue. So our work is cut out. The smoke-free information line, that's me. So you can refer anybody to that, and it will be a confidential call. And I'll spend a few minutes with this tenant, with this landlord, look to create opportunities for a meeting with this person, if it's a large landlord or a large condo, then try to feed that back to local programs so that we can partner on working with this large property manager. And so basically someone gets a few minutes to get some guidance on this and some tools for going smoke-free. But if you guys have a question, call me directly or email me, or Kathleen McCabe, but unfortunately she's out, so Brittany Chen over there is going to partner with me for a little while. Her contact information's down here. Any assistance we can give you, our role is to support you. We have lots of resources, and we can help you, support you in meetings and educational meetings with landlords, meeting with large property managers. However we can support you, be in contact with us. Let us help you on this. And that's it.
Thanks, Chris. And I think that one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure we did one of the tobacco components is we really want you to be more integrating the work on the local level. So it was great to hear about the smoke-free housing, and I think as we move forward, I talked to Patty a little bit about some of the programs are going to be working on healthy markets, and I think that's a perfect opportunity to start really looking at the tobacco and the healthy food issues all together. So now we're going to move to, you remember this morning when I did my quick slides and I just breezed through some slides and I talked about there are some programs that have already been working, Mass in Motion programs working, and they have some examples to share. So we thought this afternoon what we'd do is highlight two of the existing programs that are from this area. So Pauline Hamill from New Bedford, and then Val Sullivan from Weymouth will talk after her, and they're going to talk about the healthy dining initiatives that they've worked on. And we really wanted you to see, for those of you who are just getting started and probably a little bit anxious about certain components of it, they're going to talk about their experience, and they have a lot to share, and I think there'll be resources as you move forward. So first, I think it looks like New Bedford is going first. That's what I see up on.
All right, thank you everyone. It's really good to be here today. I think that we are going to see two very different presentations in terms of our approaches, and I think it's important for you to understand that your cities are very individual in terms of their needs and the way you have to approach things. So for the new cities, take your time and think it out, and don't get discouraged, because sometimes the first approach doesn't always work, but you'll get there. So our Healthy Dining New Bedford program incorporated a lot of meetings and partnerships and really working together with various municipal departments. Obviously, the mayor's office had to be behind us on this. And then the New Bedford Economic Development Council, South Coast Health Systems, or our South Coast hospitals, were very supportive in this process, and of course our local restaurants. So in the beginning, and some of these bullet points might not make a lot of sense, but as I tell my stories, they might. So really, it started with let's meet. And, you know, usually we're talking let's move, but we're talking let's meet, and we just pulled everyone together. This slide shows how we brought restaurant managers and owners together and met at the New Bedford Economic Development Council offices. And I must say their director was very, very helpful to us when we weren't getting the feedback we wanted. We were hoping for a little more support. This is a man who his name is Matt Morrissey, took out his cell phone, pulled us into his office, called his assistant into the office and said, get me that list of, and just started making phone calls. So what you heard earlier about the importance of having champions who can make the connections. And so, hey, how about coming to this meeting? They were there. So it really helped. We are really excited about the people that are coming on board. So some challenges. It's not all perfect. It's not all rosy. No budget. It's tough. It's tough. So, you know, using student agencies and so on was the way we had to go, but we were really pleased with the results. Getting buy-in does take time. The application process, what I neglected to say is that we put this out at the beginning of May, actually, when our mailings go out to all the restaurants in the city with the permit applications, and so they get it all at once. We are now improving and increasing that application itself to include more on children's options and also other things, low salt, low sugar, some new options that we're adding to it. And just real quick, you can see the city seal, the hospital seal, the economic development up top, our brochure. This is our window decal. The theme is Healthy Dining New Bedford, good for you, good for New Bedford. And we have placemats that show a walking map between our healthy dining restaurants. We have table tents that educate the public about making some good choices. And in the future, we will probably, because New Bedford has been fortunate enough to be chosen as a cord city, as you heard earlier, the Childhood Obesity Research Demonstration Grant, we are really trying to increase, again, the focus on children's menus. And we are going to team up with more South Coast partners. We're going to have an event on May 10th, AHA Night, which is an arts and culture night, where we hope to have a progressive walking tour from one restaurant to another. And I just want to show this slide really quickly, the food environment CDC strategies that are being recommended. You can see that healthy dining is up at the top as one of the circles that surround this food environment. We feel that in New Bedford we are beginning to address the child care facilities. We're looking at gardens, schools, grocery stores, local farms as part of the environment, but really I have to mention the South Coast area and the whole regional emphasis right now, where we have local and statewide work to make healthier foods available. Valerie Bassett from Mass Public Health Association is here who can answer more questions about this, but the Act Fresh campaign, the Grocery Access Task Force, which again is trying to increase access to supermarkets and other healthy foods. And we have the Mass Farm to School projects, and in the South Coast area we have 7 school districts between Greater Fall River and New Bedford that are preferentially purchasing local foods for school meals programs. And we are really working on school wellness policies so that we can incorporate, again, healthy food concepts in the schools. YMCA South Coast, I have to mention our partners here in terms of sharing the Harvest Farm. And Fall River has done so many wonderful things in terms of the Healthy Corner Market programs and other healthy food initiatives. And Voices and Mass in Motion continue to try to ban sugar-sweet beverages in the vending machines and public places. So on that note, I'm going to move along. I love the sign that says, please conclude now. So, perfect timing. She's so subtle. Thank you.
In Weymouth, we did it slightly different than New Bedford, but just to emphasize that there's definitely going to be no wrong or right way, and that, you know, figure out what might work in your community. And I'll also say that we change kind of our course midstream, and that's okay too. We work very closely with our planning department. Another committee that just keeps coming up is the Community Events Committee in our town. So our champion and the mayor's assistant actually sit on this committee, and you know, it's just a great opportunity to get things rolling throughout the town at different events. We have really nice partnership with South Shore Hospital. The Vice President of Marketing and Communications also sits on our steering committee, and she's been instrumental in many of the Mass in Motion initiatives. And then, so we are going to be talking about healthy dining. Some restaurant owners, we've reached out, and as you're thinking about moving forward, what I think is an important piece is if you could find a restaurant owner that lives in the community, is active in the community, we've got our bang for our buck with our champion. And these pictures are just some of our partners. One of the things that we've done throughout the course of the assessment, and then just for 3 years now, we have partnership meetings, and we actually hold them at Town Hall, and it's a good, no matter where you hold them, but Town Hall kind of gives it a little, people are coming together, and we are very fortunate that we have all over town, from the food pantry director to the director of elder services, the schools, the food service director comes when he can, Park and Rec, they're here with me today, and WIC, Man of Community Health. So just be thinking about, you got to keep going out into the community more. Media, just try it as much as you can. We did press releases, and I think Stacy was going to pass those out, but just from a quick press release, sometimes you grab them, sometimes you don't, but we were able to get a couple of nice stories, and one of the Patriot Ledger actually put the story in the business section, and it was just showing that it is a good business. It can be good for business. So we also held a kickoff, and we invited many of our partners to it, and this is just a picture of that day and some other events. So moving forward, we doing a few things a little bit different. And then what we've also been working on are healthy food options in the workplace. We just work with the mayor to adopt healthy eating at meetings policy, and took some time, and we just actually rolled it out just a few weeks, well, the end of January. We had a department head meeting, and we actually took the guidelines and the sample menu, and we presented it out and see what what your community has and what works for you. There's no right or wrong way, and feel free to call me, Pauline. The existing Mass in Motion partners, we are always on the phone with each other. How'd you do it there, and sharing and stuff. So, thank you.
We have to get the word out, obviously, about the new farmers market having, the EBT, debit, credit, yes. But then the day of the market, anybody's welcome to come, just like that morning. They don't have to sign up.
We're coming once again, and I think we're really on the cusp of doing some really exciting work. Nationally, I know when I attended both the Action Institutes in December, clearly I went in thinking we were going to get a lot of answers from them, and a lot of people were looking to us and saying, oh, Massachusetts, you guys are awesome, like you're leading the way. And we were like, really? We thought we were here to sort of learn what the way was. So obviously the work that we've begun together is on the road to success, and I know that many of you I've worked with over the years. I've lived between the Cape and the Islands for over 32 years, and I know that they're very innovative, and I know other folks in southeastern Mass are doing the same, and work in Weymouth, all very exciting. So not only do we want to do this to be successful in our community, know that we are being watched across the country. And then to address disparities, I think we really have to have some of those hard, cutting conversations that are difficult to talk about racism and discrimination. And I had a great experience doing that about a year ago. I chaired the statewide Comprehensive Cancer Advisory Committee, and we're rewriting our 5-year plan. And on a whole, Massachusetts does quite well with general screening rates, but it's when we get into the disparate populations that we don't do very well at all. And so we had one of the focuses, one of the chapters was going to be on diversity and disparities. And we had somebody come to our meeting and really challenge us not to just gloss over we'll do the culturally appropriate things and have the right languages spoken and have policies, but we really have to get beyond that. We have to scratch beyond that surface, and I think that was brought up to us again today, both by Amanda and Georgia Simpson May. So I challenge us to have some of those hard conversations. And then that we need to really change our environment. I think Mark is really inspiring and motivating about why we really need to change the environment to be healthy. The environment the way it is just really doesn't get us moving and doing the things that we need to do. And then sustainability and stickiness. I like the stickiness idea that, you know, we try things that work for short times and we just keep trying them over and over again. And I think we know that they don't really work and they don't have lasting change. So we really have to think about what's sticky for the policy and the social conditions that we're trying to change, and then how do we sustain what we're doing, both through resources, and I'd argue that we don't necessarily need to keep looking for more resources. We have to use the resources we have differently first, and then see what resources we need. And again, I want to thank you all. I want to thank the staff. Judy and Leah Susan did a lot of work. Steve and I had a lot of ideas that they kept saying, oh boy, are we really going to do this in 2 months? So they did an awesome job. And I'd like to open it up to you folks and have you share a few thoughts that maybe you took away from today. So, any takers?
So, thank you for bringing him and everyone else to the table. And it was great for us to, in Plymouth, who are new Mass in Motion members, to listen to the examples from the other communities. I think we really learned a lot. And we got very excited about what we can do.
Plymouth is off to a great start, I can assure you. We are going across the state, not only having the Action Institutes, but we've been doing kickoffs to announce and celebrate the new Mass in Motion communities. And we started in Plymouth and had the Senate President there, and we went to Barnstable a week or so ago, and we had the county commissioners there. And we're off to Somerville on March 23rd, and we actually have the Surgeon General. We're really excited because not only will she be helping us kick that off, and you know, Somerville has really gotten a lot of national attention for the work that they're doing around this, and we're delighted that they've aligned with Mass in Motion, but it's the first anniversary of the National Affordable Care Act. So we're really excited that she'll be here and she'll be participating in some events. I think it's from the 21st to the 23rd. So, and then we go to Western Mass, and we'll have a kickoff there on April the 6th. So it's really exciting to get across the state, both for these institutes and to meet your communities and the leaders in your community. So if nobody has anything else they want to say or add, I want to thank you all again, and safe travels to wherever you're going home, and look forward to working with you.